Hey everybody, we're live. Great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us for the first quarantine carousel with the Brooklyn Book Festival in 2020. Give yourself a round of applause for staying in your house and watching another Zoom event. I'm very excited about this show today. I've been doing a lot of events with the Brooklyn Book Festival over the years, and because this is the first one we're doing virtually, we're able to have guests from across the country, literally. So we have quite a lineup for you tonight. I should thank the co-chair of the graphic novel committee, Joan Hilty, for helping us set up the Zoom today. Hopefully it will look super slick, and it looks great to me.
All right, so in our show tonight, very excited to welcome Sophie Yanow, Mickey Kendall, Glynnis Fawkes, and Shary Flenniken. So again, clap to yourselves. I wish I could hear you, but it's always a little strange doing a live event with an audience someplace else. So we have this amazing group of authors. Before we begin, all right, so I have a little piece for you I'm going to start with, and this is a short excerpt from my new book, which is a fully illustrated edition of the Constitution, drawn in 120 styles. It seems like as good a time as any to have put this book out. And I'm not going to read the whole thing for you. I'm going to just show you the first few pages. I'm going to read a little excerpt just to give you a flavor of it. And then we'll carry on. So join me, won't you? Constitution Illustrated. Preamble and Article 1. We the people do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Article 1, Section 1. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. Section 2. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained to the age of 25 years. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within this union. The actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress of the United States. The number of representatives shall not exceed 1 for every 30,000, but each state shall have at least 1 representative. When vacancies happen in the representation of any state, the executive authority thereof shall issue writs of election to fill such vacancies. Section 3. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state. Immediately after they shall be assembled in consequence of the first election, they shall be divided as equally as may be into 3 classes. No person shall be a senator who shall not have attained to the age of 30 years. The Vice President of the United States shall be President of the Senate. The Senate shall choose their other officers. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. Section 4. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislator thereof. And that's just how it begins. Thank you so much. Next, oh, I see some applause. That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you to our guests who are applauding for each other. That's great. Our first presenter is the Eisner Award-winning cartoonist of the Contradictions, What is the Glacier, and War of Streets and Houses. Her comics have appeared in The New Yorker, The Guardian, Los Angeles Review of Books, and The Nib. Please welcome Sophie Yanow. Sophie?
Hello.
Hi, Sophie.
All right, thanks for having me.
Please applaud at home. How's it going?
It is going pretty
Can
well.
you hear me? Oh, hold on a second. I think it's on my end. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks.
From where? Oh, sure.
I'm in the Bay Area near San Francisco, north of San Francisco. The air is smoky again today. We had a bit of a respite from it, but it's back. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited. This is your new book from Drawn and Quarterly. And
Yeah.
Is there anything we need to know before you begin?
No, this is, I'm starting from the beginning of the book, so it should hopefully be self-explanatory.
Okay.
Are you seeing my screen?
I am.
All right, excellent. Okay.
Here's Sophie.
No one smiles here, except tourists. Don't be a tourist. I need to buy some black clothes. One student, s'il vous plaît. In the time after the psychedelics and the critical theory and the breakup, I had dropped most of my classes. In a daze, I had walked to the study abroad office and asked for any option without a language requirement. Rip, pluck, flop. Paris seemed far enough away. Sketch, sketch. My parents were adventurous lefties who had raised me on their stories of travel and late 60s political unrest. Tech. Here I was, age of 20, and so far I felt I had few stories worth telling. I'd always been too nervous for risky behavior, with the exception of some thoroughly researched drug use and too wishy-washy to stick it to the man. But now I was abroad. If something was going to change, surely this was the place for it. Hey, Mom, can you call me back so I can save minutes? Bzz, bzz. I wish I'd brought my bike. No, I do like the metro, except nobody smiles. When I get home, I literally have like a layer of dirt on my skin just from walking around. It's kind of gross. I'm reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance and the Dharma Bums. It's like the universe is trying to tell me something about travel and self-discovery. Did you hitchhike in Germany or only later? I haven't seen her yet. I kind of want to do my own thing. I should go. Orientation is tonight. Love you. Bye. Welcome. Here for orientation? Yeah, it's Yanow, Y-A-N. Okay, here you are. You're all set. The reception is upstairs. How do I hold this? With the stem? What are other people doing? Hey, Sophie. Bex. How are you supposed to hold a red wine glass? I'm not sure. Hey, this is pretty groovy though. Free wine. Well, technically we paid for it. It's so funny to drink legally here. I never drink at home. You meet anyone cool? Some nice Californians. Everyone here seems like such normies. How's your host family? They're super old. I'm just with one lady. She's a practicing Catholic. I don't think I'm going to tell her I'm gay. That sucks. Ding, ding, ding. I think it's group time. Okay, see ya. I've been here for 2 years and I barely speak a word of French. You don't need it at all. I'm international business relations. You? Communications. How about you, Sophie? I'm studio art. Paris must be so exciting for an artist. What do we got? Drinks are so expensive. I could just go and get on the metro. Oh my gosh, the trees with the little lights. It's too bad we missed Christmas in Paris. God, why did I leave my bike at home? Okay, let's get another round. I think I'm gonna head out, guys. Really nice to meet you all. Bye, see you at school. Often, as a result of feeling other often in my life, I, like so many others, have learned some important semiotic shortcuts for making friends. Whoa, bike. Special bike. Fixed gear. I heard there weren't any fixies in Paris yet. So fixie means bike geek. Wait, bike geek might mean punk, and punk might mean queer. Hey, nice bike. Hey, black bandana. I saw you at orientation. Black everything. I saw your messenger bag and I thought, either this girl rides bikes, no brakes, or she's a total tool. Well, I ride bikes. Where's your bike? California. No, we're from New York. You should hang out with us. Yeah, sure. Cool. Cool. Yes. So I ran her down in the street. I must have been drunk. Le chat est dans la maison. Ha! Le chat est dans la maison. Le chat est sous la table. Man, look at all these rich dips on their blackberries. Anyway, her name is Zena. She's here with a girl named Esther. Le chat est sous la table. Merci, à la prochaine. Want to get sandwiches? Yes. Avec le brie, s'il vous plaît? Très bien. I wonder how Enid's liking Berlin. We should totally visit her. Man, we're such dorks for studying abroad in Paris. It's so predictable. No, it's like Nouvelle Vague. I heard that this school has an easy transfer agreement with Columbia, and that's why there's so many dumb rich kids. Huh. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. Me too. I'm going to go to the Louvre tonight with some California folks if you want to come. I think I'm going to meet up with those girls. Damn. These sketchbooks are super expensive. Screw that. Check out these stamps. Cute little tree. Cool. I guess I'm not getting anything. We can go. It's nice you don't have to stay with the host family. What's your place like? There's no communal space, so I pretty much stay in my room. That must be hard. It's not ideal. I'll start the soup. Here's the grand tour. Living room, kitchen. This is the bedroom, and the bathroom is through there. That's it. That was great. Yeah, thanks, dude. No worries. Want to get some beer? I actually just stopped drinking. Oh, sorry. My friend was here last night and I got really drunk. Well, I guess he's actually my ex now. A lot of alcohol isn't vegan anyway. Oh, really? Often there's animal stomach. Glynnis has fish. I'm gonna smoke. Wanna come? Man, I'm so tired of her. Oh shit. We signed up for this program so long ago. We were like dorm friends. In New York, I only ever see her because we work at the same food co-op. Don't you guys only have one bed in there? I go to sleep with headphones on. The guy I just broke up with worked at the co-op too. We'd sit outside and yell things like, "Milk is full of pus." One time this lady was like, "Is that true?" And we were like, "Yep." And she went in and bought some soy milk. Heh. A lot of my friends are vegan. I used to be vegetarian, but I'm anemic, so I stopped. You can take iron pills or eat spinach. God, that fucking asshole. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. That jerk is working in Amsterdam. I mean, I didn't come here for him, but it would have been nice. There's still a ton of cool anarchist organizing going on here, lots of occupations and squatting. There was a big tree sit at my school. It just got evicted. Oh, rad. Were you involved? Not really. A couple of my friends got pepper sprayed trying to bring them food. That's the thing. In New York, my planner was so thick, it was like wall-to-wall actions. It feels like important things are happening and I'm missing them. I don't know much about anarchism. I've mostly read queer theory and feminism. I'm not sure why I'm here. All I knew about France is that I like their comics. Back home, I was just becoming friends with an enthusiastic Marxist dude. He was in the International Socialist something. Ugh, ISO, they're fucking poachers. A bunch of us organized an occupation of some school admin buildings last year. We took all the credit in their fucking newspaper. Fucking Marxists. Huh. Jab, jab. Yo, hey. Wump. I guess I should get going. The metro closes at midnight. That's why you need a bike. I do need a bike. I'm gonna go to the flea market in the suburbs soon. They have used bikes. Oh, cool. Is this that stamp from the store? Yep. Cool. Okay, hang on. I want to lend you a book. I read it before coming here. Oh, cool. It was originally a zine. It's these two anarchist girls who hitchhiked around Europe. Whoa. I think you're gonna like it. Tap, 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 tap. Anarchism. Tap, tap, click. Young anarchist outlaws in what would become known as illegalism. Click. The legalists openly embrace criminality as a lifestyle. Acts of rebellion, which could be individual, are in the long run seen as acts which could ignite a mass insurrection leading to revolution. This is what it means to be an adventurer in our day, to give up creature comforts of the mind, to realize possibilities of imagination. That's it. Thank you.
Sophie Yanow, thank you so much.
Yay, Sophie!
Thank you.
That was great. And I heard the applause of our next guest, actually. She's the author of Charlotte Bronte Before Jane Eyre and Persephone's Garden. She also teaches at the Center for Cartoon Studies. Her work has appeared in the New Yorker, and she lives somewhere up in the north. Glynnis Fawkes, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, Glynnis.
Now's the time, or I share the screen.
Yes, but first you have to tell us where you're at.
I'm in Burlington, Vermont.
And how is Burlington tonight?
It was very warm and rainy.
All right.
Now we see it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit about and read a few scenes from this book that came out at this time last year, Charlotte Bronte Before Jane Eyre, which is just that, a biography of the author. Charlotte Bronte grew up in a very northern English town in Yorkshire that's very tiny. She and her sisters and brother were kept themselves quite isolated and feared death by disease most of their lives. So I'm still thinking of them quite often in this lockdown. This is the last page of the book, just to give you some context about where it's going. It's the publication of Jane Eyre in 1847, and something about how it's when I was in high school, it was part of the canon. It no longer is, but because I've talked to current English teachers, but anyone can read it at any time. It's I made this drawing for the book as a sort of cheat sheet for myself and for now all of you to remind myself who wrote what. This isn't exactly accurate because back then they did not print the names on the spines of the book and they wrote under pseudonyms. So it's not exactly correct, but it helps. So here's the first page, and a reader opening this book won't know this yet, but I'm going to tell you that Charlotte, when she was 21, was teaching at this school here in the top panel, and she had written to the Poet Laureate of England, Robert Southey, sent him some poems, and asked for his advice about becoming a writer, about living as a writer. So this is a duplicate of the first page. Post, thank you, sir. I'm not attempting any English accents. Letter for you, Miss Bronte, thank you. Are you well, miss? News from home, a sweetheart maybe? No, not at all. And this is because this is not Jane Austen. Huh. Well, don't keep me from you from reading it. I'll read it when I have a moment to myself. A substantive is an adjectival noun. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Time for bed, girls. One more story. Some girls can't help it, prattle all day long. It's one thing during recreation hour, but some continue even in class. They talk and talk and talk and talk, and it's so hard to concentrate. Don't you find, Charlotte? Yawn. Finally. You live in a visionary world. You who so ardently desire to be forever known. You evidently possess, and in no inconsiderable degree, the faculty of verse. I am not depreciating it when I say that in these times it is not rare. Many volumes of poems are now published every year without attracting public attention. Whoever therefore is ambitious of distinction in this way ought to be prepared for disappointment. Literature cannot be the business of a woman's life. The more she is engaged in her proper duties, the less leisure she will have for it, even as an accomplishment and a recreation. To those duties you have not yet been called, and when you are, you will be less eager for celebrity. Write poetry for its own sake, not in a spirit of emulation and not with a view to celebrity. The less you aim for that, the more likely you will be to deserve and finally obtain it. Your true friend, Robert Southey. So she received this letter when she was 21 and wrote on it to be saved forever. And actually they kept up a correspondence even after what he told her really to give up. And she didn't give up, and and now I dare say her name is more famous than his. I'm going to jump ahead through the book, but here's a few pages just to see what happens next. Charlotte and her sister Emily took a train, a boat, and a carriage to the city of Brussels to go to school. Their excuse was that they needed the language to open their own school in Yorkshire, but I think they really just wanted to avoid teaching, and this was a great option. These places have since been destroyed, and so I was working off very rare photographs that exist, very few, and here they are in school. Bam! This is what I'm talking about. I'm trying to show you how to write, Miss Charlotte. You put in so many details. How do they contribute toward developing a subject? These words that I've made this Monsieur Eyre say are from his notations on the Charlotte's French compositions that she wrote while she was there that have survived. So that was a very good resource in making this book happen. By creating a picture with words, I build a scene, I set a mood. You fill your composition with so many images that your reader is lost. Rewrite this according to my corrections. Remember, remorselessly sacrifice everything that does not contribute to clarity. Accentuate everything that sets the main idea in relief, so that the impression be colorful and picturesque. It's sufficient that the rest be in its proper place, but in halftone. What gives to style as to painting unity, perspective, and effect. What's this, tears? My dear Charlotte, I tell you the truth to improve your writing. You would not have me give you platitudes and spare your feelings? Read Lamartine 14, the infinite. We will analyze it together from the point of view of the details. Here, have a bonbon. We are working together. I am your teacher. Yes, remember that. Your improvement is a collaboration, and I have faith in your abilities. Thank you. Until next time, Mademoiselle Bronte. Till next time. How can you, I can't see this. Tears, for God's sake? How can you not be affected? And bonbons, are we little children he needs to bribe? He's the first one who has read my writing, taken an interest, and showed me ways to improve. Oh. shoot. How can I, suddenly it's stuck. There we go. We're paying him to take an interest. Also, haven't Anne Branwell and I read your writing since we were little? Does that count for nothing? You must have written 1,000 pages before we came here. Don't you think you know what you're doing? Saw a pause. Charlotte did write 1,000 pages of stories set in her imaginary world of Angria. And Isabel Greenberg just published a book that's in and out of that imaginary world, which is amazing to see. This is the first time I've been asked to craft my compositions. Always before, I've written whatever comes into my head, one scene after another, as vividly as I imagine them. But he sees how I can learn to control my imaginings to achieve greater power of expression. I just hope my next essay pleases him. Pleases him? It seems a far more profitable goal to please yourself. With Monsieur Heger, it's the same thing. Emily was a great character foil to Charlotte, who may have fallen in love with that professor, and her work definitely changed after her time in Belgium, and Emily's work did not change at all. She kept on with her own very singular vision. So when I was working on this book, I was very immersed in Charlotte's world, and I was thinking of her all the time. So here she is coming with me to a yoga class. What's this all about? It helps alleviate the anxiety of unrecognized genius. On occasion, she was overtaken by visions of her own characters. Zamorna, I just came to adjust your warrior too. Adjust me too. We all are overtaken by imaginary characters, I'm afraid. I'll write a story about a heroine who is just as small, plain, and insignificant as I am, and an ugly hero too. Poor Zamorna was, she always described him as being very beautiful, but he was from her fantasy world that she put aside. Also, it was a time when I made some cartoons for the New Yorker, including this one, where I was thinking, what if, like I could solve all the problems of 19th century literature with a little birth control? So Jane Eyre really could go to the villa in France. And Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff, you big goof. How could I be dead from childbirth when I was never pregnant? We can still haunt the moors though, just in case, because it's fun. Any fans of Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights video, there's a really good parody by Noel Fielding that makes my day every time. And here, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. My heart was stolen by one unworthy of its possession, but no worries, I moved on and saved so much on the rent of Wildfell Hall. I also made this little mini comic where the Bronte sisters visit the Center for Cartoon Studies and have a pretty good time there. And this is from another New Yorker cartoon series about parenting books through the ages, how you and your Victorian child can stay fashionably sedated until this repressive era is over. I'm not condoning or recommending this, it's just an idea. And that's all from me and Charlotte. The end.
Thank you, Glynnis.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. Thank you so much. Oh, I've been reminded by Joan, who's been very helpful today. For those folks who have questions for any of the authors, please put them into the Q&A at the end of the show. We will answer the questions. And next, let me tell you a little bit about our next author. She is the author of Hood Feminism. Her essays can be found in Time, the New York Times, the Guardian, the Washington Post. Her recent media appearances include BBC, NPR, The Daily Show, PBS, Good Morning America, MSNBC, Showtime, and Carousel. Please welcome her. She is the author of The New Graphic History, which she'll be talking about today, Amazons, abolitionists, and activists, and it is Mickey Kendall. Hi,
Hi,
Mickey.
everyone. Hold
Hi,
on, let me
Mickey.
share my screen first. I am not doing a reading because my book lends itself to being read, not so much to readings. You'll understand in a second. Hold on, let me share my
Sure.
screen. Come on. Can you see? It is giving me so, there we go. All right.
Yes.
Zoom
yes.
is just being a pain.
That's perfect.
So Amazon's Ellison activists, you get the cutesy screen that we start this with. And the reason I wrote this book, just to give you kind of a preface, is because a lot of women's history gets buried and we end up not really hearing about women's contributions. So we kind of get this false sense of history that men did everything, and then feminism happened in the early 1900s with suffrage and so on. And now women do things that actually women have always done things. Case in point. Side note, the reason I have history as a tapestry and I'm showing you all of this artwork is because our characters in this particular book are a group of students arguing over which women have done the most to advance the cause of women's rights through time. And as a result of that, their lovely teacher, Guy, and AI decides to take them on a trip through time and art history and a few other places. So you see our students in an art gallery. They are looking and they are very confused, and you are probably also confused. But one of the points that was really important here was that even the art that we see in cave paintings or the Venus statues that we were probably taught were fertility figures, those statues are actually the view of a woman looking down at herself. That's why they're shaped that way. There's nothing really to do with a man's view of a woman's body. The paintings in the caves, they eventually figured out, those little tiny lines and, who was painting all of this? These are actually probably the fingers of women. Maybe children, but mostly the fingers of women. So even the art that we think of as prehistoric, as documenting life before we knew what was going on, women wrote that down. You owe everything you know about recorded history pre-writing to women in art. I just had to get that in there. So we take the kids to Sumer in 3000 BC, and that's where they first start to see the development of major cities, and the fact that even in ancient history, not only did women have rights, they were able to work, own property. Not a lot of women could read and write at this point because not a lot of people could read and write. And although there were some restrictions on what women could do, especially in terms of divorce, they did have legal protections. And because of these things, even though we think of women as getting rights later, actually women gained and lost rights in different cultures at different times around the world. This is why when you look back at prehistory and you read about Amazons, about Valkyries, that is fact informing fiction and fiction informing fact. So what is actually happening in this scene is a little bit of a mess, and there's some Easter eggs for fun, but also it is an example of what life was like at different points and how we were part of history and part of the grander cultural zeitgeist in many cultures as warriors, as people who stood up and fought, even though later archaeologists influenced by culture tried to erase those things. So you know how the Amazons were supposed to be a myth and a legend? Actually, they found them. They just decided they were men. They found their bodies, they saw the weapons, and they said, oh, these must be young men. And then eventually they said, oh, actually, no. Same thing with shield maidens, AKA Valkyries. Often they assumed the grave goods dictated gender. They did not. So they found bodies with weapons and shields, must be men. No, history is way more interesting than you think. This takes us to the kingdom that would become ancient Korea and one of the earliest women rulers outside of Africa. And this is Queen Sikoryak, who was ruthless. She was fascinating, right? She dies in 647 CE. An astronomy tower that she had built during her reign is still standing. It's one of the oldest known ones in Asia. And how she got to be so powerful, her father was a leader, she killed the men who would have deposed her. She was ruthless, right? Because fun fact also, women being major figures in history doesn't mean that they were always the good guys or always the bad guys. There were lots of roles just like every other human being. So that's what's going on there. And then we get into royalty around the world, whether we're talking about Queen Elizabeth or Queen Nzinga. What we see then is the conflict between rulers in different places as colonialism and imperialism comes into play, and the ways that the decisions of women who we think of as feminist icons might in fact be harmful not only to other women, but not even be really great for women who look like that. Queen Elizabeth is a prime example. Although she was a very powerful woman, she is not what we would have considered a feminist. She thought of herself as the exception and felt that other women were foolish and did not have a man's heart. That line is actually kind of accurate in the movie. Whereas Queen Nzinga actually chose, Queen Nzinga actually chose to stand up for her people. She fought as long as she could, but unfortunately they simply didn't have the population and the weapons. And even though they attempted to humiliate her by not giving her a seat at one point in a conference, she held out long enough to win at least a modicum of safety from slavery for her people. Then we get to Sojourner Truth, who you probably know from the Ain't I a Woman speech. So, a couple things. A, Sojourner Truth's first language was Dutch. She actually didn't learn to speak English until she was 9. And even though she escaped slavery in 1826, she couldn't take her children with her, so she eventually sued to win her children. She's one of the first women to file such a case and win. And in that speech, and this is a part I actually wanted to read to you because I feel like more people need to know what she actually said. She spoke perfectly clear, unaccented English because she had never been enslaved in the South. Her first language was Dutch. Her syntax would have likely been that of any Northerner. And also, fun fact, a lot of this, the framing that you think of AABE, some of that was intentionally done by slaves because sounding too smart could get you killed in the South. Could get you killed a lot of places, but specifically in the South. So even what we think of as that habit of speech is actually a mock-up of something done to make white people feel fancy, for lack of a better way of putting it. There was other ways I could put that, but it'd probably be too rude for this crap. So what Sojourner Truth actually said, I want to say a few words about this matter. I am a woman's rights. I have as much muscle as any man and can do as much work as any man. I have plowed and reaped and husked and chopped and mowed. And can any man do more than that? I have heard much about the sexes being equal. I can carry as much as any man and can eat as much too if I can get it. I am as strong as any man that is there. As for intellect, all I can say is, if woman have a pint and a man a quart, why can't she have her little pint full? You need not be afraid to give us our rights for fear we will take too much. For we can't take more than our pint will hold. The poor men seem to be all in confusion and don't know what to do. Why, children, if you have woman's rights, give it to her and you will feel better. You will have your own rights and they won't be so much trouble. I can't read, but I can hear. I have heard the Bible and learned that Eve caused man to sin. Well, if woman upset the world, do give her a chance to set it right side up again. The lady has spoken about Jesus, how he never spurned woman from him, and she was right. When Lazarus died, Mary and Martha came to him with faith and love and besought him to raise their brother. And Jesus wept, and Lazarus came forth. And how came Jesus into the world? Through God who created him and woman who bore him. There's more to the speech, but you get the idea. That is a very eloquent speaker who fought not just for the freedom of enslaved people, but also for the rights of women. This is an important fact. Then we get to the Harlem Renaissance. At this point in the book, we are seeing everyone from Jessie Redmond Fawcett to Alice Dunbar Nelson to Zora Neale Hurston, because it's very important to note that once again, even as women were fighting for their rights after voting, we also still have the fight for rights to be able to legally vote and safely vote, particularly for Black and Indigenous women, and for the freedom to make decisions and live your life in this land of the free that is supposed to be America. Women's rights have always been different depending upon where you are and often who you are in that particular society. So yes, it's a grand old party, but also the Harlem Renaissance is one of America's greatest cultural touchstones and foundational in our culture today. And it's important to note that it was driven largely by women, largely by Black women. Not that we were the only ones, but we were huge forces in the shaping of the world as we know it today. Now we get to how girls really run the world, and also the war effort and this span of history where we figure out that women in the war effort, suddenly women's labor was counted as valuable. It had always been valuable, whether it was in the home or outside the home. But now in public, it was being recognized that without the labor of women, the world could be lost. It could fall into fascism. That's still true, by the way. And so, you know, the Great Depression eventually had, you know, driven a lot of women out of the workforce. They come back in, and it is at this point that we really start to get into the meat of labor rights specifically for women. Which brings us now to the current time. The women's rights movement still has a lot of work to do. The book brings this up a lot, that even if some women are successful, even if some women are beginning to achieve their goals and their hopes and their dreams, it doesn't mean that you don't still face everything from online harassment to racism to rape culture to misogyny. You get the idea. And women, cis and trans, are subjected to all manner of violence. Because when I am talking about women here, I am not just talking about cisgender women. I'm talking about trans women. I'm talking about non-binary people. More than 50% of the population cannot be discarded or erased, nor can their fights for equity and equality for everyone be erased. And no, it hasn't always gotten right, but there's no point in history where you can say, well, we'll just put the women in the corner and nothing will happen, and we'll figure the rest of it out. In fact, what I argue in Amazon's Abolitionists and Activists is that everywhere you turn, every day, every moment, every year, women are doing important things, regardless of how we would construct whether or not that was important at that particular second. We see the impact down through the years, down through the generations, down through culture. And we should be more concerned with making sure that the rights we gain are kept, and also that new rights and equity is attained, than with saying that women have somehow gotten too much. They still haven't gotten equality or equity. And that's what we should all be working to for everyone. So that's my little soapbox about my book. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you will read it and check it out.
Thanks, Mickey. That was great. Mickey, I forgot to mention the name of your illustrator.
Oh, A. D'Amico, who is an amazing artist. And we have another project coming out this December, I want to say, in Lori Halse Anderson's book about women and power in the world. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Always happy to plug more. Thank you so much. Don't forget, everybody, put your questions in the chat. I see we're starting to get a couple. And we have one more reader tonight. And she has actually put her location in her bio. She is a Seattle-based cartoonist, editor, and screenwriter, currently living in Seattle. Yeah, that checks out. She is best known for incorporating elements of feminism and gender politics in her Trots and Bonnie comic in National Lampoon magazine, which will be collected in a book, I believe, coming soon. February. Please welcome Shary Flenniken, everybody. How are you?
Thanks, Glynnis. I'm fine. Thank you, Mickey, for elevating women. I'm going to take you in the other direction now with my story. I decided to, I pre-recorded a story that I wrote that appeared in National Lampoon in 1985. And there are some odd coincidences in it that I thought made it appropriate to be showing you now. So I am gonna see if I can't get that started by sharing my screen. Is that doing it? Let's see.
Not yet.
All right, I have to click share. There, I'm gonna try that.
That's starting to work, yes.
Yes. Rose, Rose, there she goes into the bushes to take off her clothes. By Shary Flenniken. Oh, hi. I was just looking at this picture of Rose Ambrose. She lived next door to me in Dogwood, Washington. She wasn't what you'd call pretty, but she had style. We wanted real bad to play with the neighborhood boys, but being future mothers of America, we were relegated to babysitting our dolls. But Rose had a way of getting in on the male action. Rose craved male adoration. She worked hard devising schemes to attract the attention of men. Signs in the window say, "My parents are gone. The doctor is in." The other girls looked down on her garish, provocative clothes and unabashed sexual promiscuity, but they couldn't help but envy her popularity with the opposite sex. By the time we reached high school, all the girls were dressing like Rose and experimenting with free love. Most of us were soon plagued with venereal disease and unwanted pregnancies. We were disillusioned with casual sex, but Rose was still determined to sleep around as much as possible. Men are such bastards. Have you tried women? She breezed through college and grad school. See you later. I got a date with my economics professor. And went into investment banking. Rose risked everything to have an affair with the head of the firm. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Powerhorn. Mr. Powerhorn just stepped away from his desk." When was Rose going to learn that you can't always use sex to get what you want? "I've just been made a vice president." Obviously, she was never going to learn. Rose could get anything she wanted. She decided to go into politics. The banner on the car says, "Re-elect Senator Longword," and Senator Longword's wife is already giving Rose the stink eye. Deal making was her specialty. Notice that she has weird red-orange hair and she likes to make deals. She supported a political dark horse and reaped a series of prestigious political appointments. And there's Rose staring at the Capitol. I wasn't surprised when the presidential candidate chose her as his running mate. There she is, running for vice president. "Oh, Looney for president. Oh, Looney, our man. Wyoming loves Oh, Looney. Iowa for Oh, Looney. President Oh, Looney." The president stopped breathing. And now Rose is being sworn in as President of the United States, and Mrs. O'Looney is not happy. But the new president's unique negotiating style did wonders for world peace. Send in the Russians. On a rare occasion, Rose confided in me. "I've eliminated world poverty and war, but look how it's aged me. I don't think I can handle getting old. I'd rather die than be unattractive. Take this gun. I want to be assassinated." "What, me? Now? Here?" "No, Tuesday. I've arranged a parade." But when the time came, I couldn't do it. I didn't have to. Out of my way. "Mrs. O'Looney." "No!" I grabbed the gun from Mrs. O'Looney and the bullet missed its mark. Unfortunately, there were others with the same idea. Other shots rang out. Mrs. Longword, Mrs. Powerhorn. The Daily Times says president assassinated. Lone gunman sought. Conspiracy theory poo-pooed. Finally, the true story can be told. Rose, a memoir by Rose's lifelong friend and personal secretary, me. You know of her achievements. Now you can read about her conquests. It's jam-packed with full-color photos and the exquisite details of every sordid sex act. Now in paperback, $5.95. Copyright 1985, Shary Flenniken. Hey, what about our book? It's great. New York Review of Comics is paying me in bones.
Shary
Okay.
Flenniken.
My book's going to come out in February, and it has a totally hilarious introduction by Emily Flake that makes it worth getting it just for that.
Well, that's great. It's all worth getting. Thank you so much, Shary. That, folks, is basically our show. We are happy to take questions. Before we do, I just want to thank all of our guests one more time as I put up their images. Shary Flenniken, Mickey Kendall, Glynnis Fawkes, and Sophie Yanow. Please give them a big hand. And everybody can open their mics who's in the show. We did get one question so far. Thanks everybody for coming. Before we get to the questions, I just want to thank again the Brooklyn Book Festival for having us back this year. There's programming all this week, and I think the main event is next Sunday. Am I right, Joan? You can jump in too. And please go to the website, brooklynbookfestival.org, I'm going to say. I should have written it down. But yes, there's lots of great events all week, and I'm so happy we get to do this again. Thank you so much, everybody. And now let's see what the questions are all about. I'll stop sharing my screen. All right, everybody's still there. Awesome. Great. Starting to get some questions here. People are welcome to enter them into the Q&A. The first question is from Matthew, and it's a question for everyone. He says, putting this presentation together and seeing your work as individual frames in isolation, not the whole page, but just the frames, must be very interesting. What makes a frame great? What makes a frame not great? Does anybody want to take that comics question?
I can take it. It's a lot. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. It's a lot like in Glynnis's piece with Charlotte Bronte, the advice that guy gave Charlotte about her writing, about how important it is to be clear and to have the essential parts appear in the foreground and then have the rest, the other adjunct parts in the background. So that's artistically, that's what you want to do. And so what works in writing also works in art, I think. So thank you.
That's why I chose that piece of writing out of the many other things that he said, because I thought, hey, he's talking to me, and it helped. Yeah, but that's a very big question, because that's sort of like, what is comics, and what makes it good. And like Sophie, you often don't even use a panel border at all, right?
Yeah, sometimes if I want a feeling of, if I want to focus on a gesture or something where I don't put a panel border or background to just have it be sort of
Yeah.
about the movement sometime.
And I think because we went for a very colorful, I feel like we had the most colorful
Yeah.
book in here. We actually went for the idea that everything going on in the background was maybe as important as what was going on in the foreground. You just had to be paying attention. But our goal was to have it be a book that people could come back to and find new things every time. To pack so much in that you might kind of feel like a Where's Waldo sort of vibe, where you want to go back and look at that image. Did you see what you saw, kind of a thing. So there's a lot of Easter eggs scattered through the book.
I loved how you said that, and it makes you slow down and really look all around at that big, rich scene. And I really appreciated how the breadth of history that your book covers.
Yeah, we went from technically 4000 BC or BCE, I think it's how we're saying now,
Yeah.
to the near future. So it was an interesting process trying to whittle that down into, specific pages. There's a lot of stuff that's not there that isn't there, not even because it wasn't interesting, but just because at a certain point, it turns out your editor will say to you, there can only be so many pages in this book.
Mine said 90. That's it.
Mine stopped when we started to close in on 200.
That makes, yep.
We have a few more questions here. John asks Mickey, did you see the last Lovecraft Country? Question mark, exclamation point.
I have not watched. I've heard I need to watch. Here's where I confess, although I am recording episodes, I am not a person who can watch week to week. Netflix has ruined me. And I watched that first couple episodes and was like, I can't handle cliffhangers. I need to be able to just spend a Sunday. I know that this will also scar and traumatize me. I have figured that out. I need to be able to spend a Sunday or a Saturday and a Sunday and just watch the whole season. Because otherwise I'm going to yell incoherent things at people I shouldn't yell incoherent things at. It's very important. Fact about me.
Good advice. Good advice. Another question from John. Glynnis, do you use pencil? Did we lose? No, Glynnis is there.
I'm here.
Glynnis, do you use pencil plus ink wash or computer shading? How do you make your pages?
I did. I drew it in pencil. I inked it in pencil, and then I started doing the shading on the computer, and didn't like it, and so did it all in real like ink wash on paper. So it's 2 different layers and put together in Photoshop. Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. Next we have anonymous attendee says, hi Shary, I'm a fan going way back. I'd love to hear about your take on the work you shared, comparing it to how you thought about it when you made it in the 80s and how you think about it now in the post Me Too era.
Oh, yeah. Well, I made that strip because it's actually a theme with me, that it irritates me that women were able to sleep their way into good jobs. And I knew women who'd done that. And I think I might have been jealous because I couldn't seem to do it. It helps. It doesn't help to be attracted to like other cartoonists or musicians or something. It doesn't really elevate you in your career. And so that's really why I did the strip. And in writing, there is a thing where you take the most extreme example of the character that you want to write about. So if you want to write about a depressed person, you write about the most depressed person in the world and what would that person do. So that was kind of the arc that the writing arc that I used in that strip. I spend a long time thinking about the writing part and structuring it before I ever get into writing the dialogue and the action and what turns into the number of pages that I have. So Lampoon was great. They'd let me do anything. They would let me, do anything I wanted to. So I think does that answer the question?
I find it interesting that you got women mad at the women and not at the men who were willing to do the trade. I mean, I feel like if we don't have good choices and people are making decisions between bad options, I'm not going to get mad at the person making the choice, the best available choice for them. I'm going to get mad at the person that creates the system or sustains the system that means that they only have these couple of options.
Yes, ma'am. I've changed a lot since then.
Yeah,
And the world's changed a lot. I mean, literally, you can tell, like, I put super red lipstick on those women in the art, and I was walking around with these bright red lips, which, you know, were, and shoulder pads, and, you know, I mean, it was what I'm trying to say is the superficial way that we looked at things, it was really different. It was really different in 1985. We were going to discos. And yeah, you know, it's just not being conscious of, and I've been doing feminist stuff since I was 20 years old in 1970. So, but the politics of what I've done really awful things, awful cartoons. And it's because I was kind of experimenting with political ideas, and I was allowed to do it. So I was allowed to just expose all this stuff. So yeah, it's strange, you know, to look back on it from where I am now and see all these great changes. So yeah, and you know, thank you for the work you're doing, and that everybody's doing to bring women to a better space where we're not being after each other and not being jealous of each other, you know?
Yeah, I've never seen any point in jealousy.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
also that power and position has to be sexualized, like that those two are automatically equated in Rosie's life, you know, like she didn't have any, she didn't go for any other option. Like that was the way she was gonna climb.
I mean, as someone who could have been tagged in this way in my 20s, you'd be amazed at what people have on offer for girls who are shaped a certain way, we'll put it that way. And not that I actually delivered on the offers, but I was more than willing to let them talk if it let me get where I was headed. But I never thought of it. Now, granted, I always used it to also get other women into better positions, but I've always felt like people think, well, she shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, well, he's the one with the power in the equation. And her choices are the street or unemployment or whatever, because we also kind of forget. Girls that look like Rosie who say no, they catch something much worse than just other women's disapproval.
Oh.
So
yeah,
That's
it's
really
also
kind.
it's so interesting also how humor has changed. I mean, I've been looking at a lot of New Yorker collections of cartoons from the past, and like the 50s. John, my husband, just got me the Playboy collection of cartoons from the 50s, and they're all based on, like, any joke about power and sex is like, that's, I mean, not just Playboy, but the New Yorker, it seems like that's forward for sure. Mm-hmm. And the humor, I think that it does not exist in the New Yorker now. They would never take a cartoon like that now. It's just, it's the.
Well, I mean, you know, Anita Hill and so many other cases have happened since then.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and even in the 80s, you can look at what happened with Anita Hill, and then later, you know, what just happened with Kavanaugh and all of that. And you can see that there's a thread of, well, you shouldn't have looked like that out in the world, basically, that there's not really a way to combat that except to either confront it, you know, go to court now. But I mean, the laws that would have protected someone really don't exist until well into the 70s, right? Because we've got this whole period of time, women can't have credit cards and they can be fired for getting pregnant. There's this whole thing, and technically they can still get fired for being pregnant or have unemployment, which is a whole other mess. And so then I think that that's part of where the humor starts to seep out, because as those protections are created and those lawsuits happen, you know, it's not like Me Too happened rapidly. Me Too was building for decades. And then you get to a place where, you know, I'm in my 40s, so I've seen, you know, I was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first big batch of women to be a combat medic in the US Army. And at that point, we were still getting tagged with, oh, you're here to find a husband. Like, literally the first thing they said to me at MAPS was, well, if you pick this MOS, you might meet a good guy. I'm not signing up to go through basic training to find a boy. I can find a boy at home. If I wanted a boy, I might not want one. Like,
They grow on trees, really.
right, right. You know, I mean, even in the 90s, the only reason to really hang out with straight men was because you really liked them. Otherwise, there was another one in 15 minutes around the corner. But, you know, I think people forget that what was basically happening is that you were presented with, here is your sexual harassment with money, or here's your sexual harassment without money. Which one are you going to pick?
Wow. In the process of researching the Bronte book, there's a biographer made a comparison between the Brontes and Jane Austen and her family, and the Jane Austen books really are about you know, like securing a match that is economically of advantage, especially to the woman. So it's basically you know, sexual, you know, like sexual favors for money. I mean, if you're putting it very bluntly. And the Brontes absolutely, I think Charlotte had 3 marriage proposals, but she wanted to write. And so it's one reason why I really enjoyed working on her story, is that she did not want to compromise her freedom for like an economic security. Like,
I mean, for both of them, the best position to be in at that point was either to be unmarried and a spinster, or to be a widow. It was awful.
Unless someone liked their husband.
Yeah, and mostly they didn't. Mostly they either lived separately or
yeah, the thing that so many people love about Mr. Darcy is, you know, like you don't ever get that close to him, like the romance of it. And also, I think the sisters enjoyed living together on their own. Like they had a pretty good time, just them.
Well, and if I remember correctly, they had enough money between the 2 of them.
They were always worried about money. They were constantly worried about it. And yeah.
But I mean, comparatively speaking, they were not at the point of having to take in laundry or, you know,
no. And there's a letter where Charlotte says, I would do that rather than, you know, do anything else. But they were definitely in an upper class. So they were at the low end of an upper class.
Right, that sort of genteel poverty.
Right, yeah. I can answer Jean's question right here because I see.
Thank you. I was about to ask it. Please.
The story of how this project came together is James Sturm, who's the head of Center for Cartoon Studies, the maker for a biographical series that the Center for Cartoon Studies produces, asked me. He actually asked a friend, and she said, no, I want to do my own book. And I said, dang it, tell him to ask me. And he did. And that was very nice because I really enjoyed doing this book. So it was not at all my idea, but he gave me a list of subject matter, and I chose the Brontes. Most of the other ones are American, and there's a book about Harriet Tubman in progress right now that I've seen a few pages of, and it is gorgeous, and I can't wait to see it. So there will be more from this series. Yeah.
I also had a question for Sophie. A lot of the cartoonists on this panel do autobiographical work or semi-autobiographical work, I would say. But Sophie, a lot of your work is autobiographical. I was wondering if you could talk about, for a long project like this, what it was like to kind of consolidate all your ideas over time into one book. Can you talk about that process?
Yeah. So this book, it's like autofiction is how I refer to it. So essentially, it's based on some experiences that I have had, but not necessarily in a linear fashion. So I did study abroad in France, and I hitchhiked while I was there. But it sort of takes maybe like an emotional arc of 3 or 4 years of my actual life and sort of condenses it into this story. And one of the reasons that I did that was because although the intro that I read from does have a fair bit of narration, the rest of the book is mostly without narration. And I wanted to be able to have scenes that sort of hit without me telling you what the character is thinking. So that meant that I was coming up with scenes and cobbling this thing together. In the end, I think it's a pretty cohesive narrative. But yeah, that process was one where when I started out thinking about wanting to write about this period in my life, I thought that I would do something that was straight memoir. And then as I worked on the project, for a number of reasons, I just decided that I wanted to try something different and do something in a different way. And this is what came out, yeah.
Great, thanks. Did anyone else have questions?
I have a question for Sophie. Can I ask it?
Oh, absolutely, yes, of course. You all can talk to each other.
I love the way your characters bounce when you're drawing. I just like, they're always like their legs are flying up in the air and they're flopping down somewhere, and there's a lot of action in it. And I'm wondering where you're going to go from here, and what you're working on now, or what you want to work on in the future, and what you're thinking about.
Well, yeah, the future is fairly unwritten. I think something that you can see in this is that I kind of at the end of this, I was like, oh, now I kind of know how to do a fiction story. Like, do I want to go down that road? But then if you look at my previous work, like I've done some amount of sort of like graphic advocacy, journalism work, stuff that's more directly like talking about, issues. And so I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, do I want to do a fiction book, or do I want to go nonfiction? And I'm not sure. But as for the bouncy figures, I have done, I spent a lot of time when I was a college student, particularly doing hours and hours of like figure drawing classes. And if you look at my earlier work, most of what I'm actually drawing is just figures. And even here, like the backgrounds are, they're there to establish things, but the figures are a big focus of my drawing. So yeah, thank you.
Well, we've covered a lot tonight. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in here. Oh, there's 2 more messages. Uh-oh, let me see. Are those, oh, maybe that's just directions from me. Yes, that's just Joan helping me out. Okay, I think we got all the Q&A in then. Thank you so much, everybody. Shary, Glynnis, Mickey, Sophie, you were awesome. Thanks to the audience for showing up and sticking around. Please check out the rest of the Brooklyn Book Festival events, and Carousel will return at some point down the line. Thanks, everybody. Joan, did I forget anything? Joan Sting.
You forgot nothing. Thank you, everybody from Brooklyn Book Festival Graphics Committee for attending. I had one super high-minded question to close, just in case nobody asked any others, but there were so many great ones that we didn't have a chance to get to it.
Oh no, Joan, what is it?
All right.
I can't sleep unless you tell it.
Yeah.
Shut up. All right, I'll even turn on my video and my ring light, which I absentmindedly turned off to make.
Wait, you and Sophie have the same.
You weren't supposed to say anything.
And it is a super high-minded, weird question, but I just wanted to throw it out there because we are living in a unique, you know, crazy artistic and cultural moment. How do you think the pandemic has changed storytelling or will change storytelling? That is my high-minded question. You can feel free
Historian
to
hat.
too high-minded, but go.
No, it's not. But historian hat. It actually probably will not change storytelling as much as people think it will. We will see a spurt of more stories. We'll see a lot more words because people have time to write right now. But every other pandemic, including some that have been worse, and thinking of 1918 in that context, what happens is that we write furiously. We write out our trauma, for lack of a better way of putting it. And then at some point, we resume whatever the average number of things being produced. I think we'll see a lot of production, and we'll see some people who can't produce under these conditions. And we'll see some people who can only produce right now because they have literally nothing else to fill the silence around them. So I think that even though we think this will change everything about how we address the world, it would not change as much as people think it will.
I just like to add something as a consumer of stories. Right now, when I watch, like, you know, a TV show or a movie, and there's like a crowd of people, I'm like, look at those people standing so closely together without masks. And I wonder how long that like is going to go on in my brain for, and how that
will actually probably fade in about 2 years, right around the point at which we stop. As soon as the world outside matches the world on your screen again,
right,
it'll start to fade. Because you know what was weird for me at first? Seeing so many people in masks in the US, right? And then now it's sort of our normal and we see it all the time. And then in a couple of years, if it's not our normal, which, let's be honest here, we're not doing well with masks nor vaccines nor any other public health choice right now in America, we are gonna see people not wearing them because they won't need them, right? We're already hearing that the studies are good for immunity in some of the vaccines. And I think that once we, just like with the flu, right, influenza, there will come a point where we will think of COVID as being no bigger of a deal than we think of colds or flus, because that's what we've rationalized away every other major disease. Not that they weren't major, but I'm gonna remind you that there were people who said, the measles are no big deal. Like 6 months before COVID, and all of these people insisting, despite deaths, that the measles were no big deal. They wanted to have COVID parties, despite death tolls. Humans aren't necessarily the brightest top line species is really the answer. But yeah, I think you'll freak out about it for a while. And then one day, when outside matches what's on your screen, it will resume being normal, and what will be an aberration again will be seeing people, lots of people in masks. I'm sort of hoping we give up hugging strangers though. Let's just let that one go.
It's made my work harder because I like to go out with people to dinner and things, and hang out with my friends, and then I write down everything that they say and use that as dialogue or material for my comics. So now I can't steal from my friends as easily.
I think, and Sophie, I thought you might say something about stories. I feel like I've had friends who say, you know, like I'm writing some, you know, personal story about my own past or something, and it doesn't feel relevant right now. I want to contribute something larger to you know, the outrage of what's going on, and I don't know how, or but I also feel like personal stories are so necessary. Like they're solace for me to hear and read stories that other people have written. So it's just as vital to keep on working.
Yeah, I think because I wrote this and Hood Feminism together, and then I was already working on what's going to be my third book, which I can't tell you about, but I just did, so there you go. I don't feel that impulse. I actually miss being able to write fiction, because I also write fiction and like random things. And right now it feels like the nonfiction switch has been switched on and it just won't go off. Not that I can't write any fiction, but it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, really good. Keeping it now.
Thank you.
Does that answer every aspect of it, Joan?
Yes, it does. And the only other thing I wanted to add, and then I want to let Bob put a button on it, is that hopefully you can all see the chat that you may not be able to contribute to, but that you can benefit from. I have put links to every author's book in the chat. Please, especially because this year we do not have the benefit of you guys getting to meet these guys live and let them sign their books and take them away. Please support their awesome books. 5 great authors, 5 great books, and go to those links and buy their books. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks.
Yes, please. Thank you, Joan. And thanks again, everybody. Shary, Glynnis, Mickey, Sophie. Yeah, check out the links in the chat. And thank you all for the questions. And good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.